welcoming roundtable discussion on how universities support rural areas to become startup villages. We just talked and heard that quite many funding schemes, funding tools are coming up, but let's see what actually our educational foundation is saying about that, how they see the implementation of the innovation in rural areas. Universities are usually seen as the main place where new ideas and innovations are developed. And not only that, universities are seen as the main tool or encouragement or foundation for the young people to learn what actually are innovations, how to create them, or how to be created overall. So universities provide a fertile ground for startups that can be further developed by the university also. One of the best ways to promote innovation in rural areas is through universities, young people, and universities are being seen as one of the key drivers of innovation in any country, and we often turn to them. They have a lot of offer to both students and entrepreneurs, and making them an ideal partner for anyone looking to develop innovative products and services in rural areas. So today I'm welcoming our panelists. That's Klavdija Kutnar, Rector of the University of Primorska, Professor Dr. Julija Kiršienė, Vice-Rector of Research at Vytautas Magnus University, Liene Briede, Director of the Science and Innovation Center of Riga Technical University, Board Member at European Innovation Council and Latvian Startup Association, George Beers, Coordinator at SmartAgriHubs, Wageningen University and Research, Evelyn Reinmuth, the coordinator of the Hub of European University Alliance for Startup Village, which unites 44 universities. So welcome everyone on board. Thank you for joining us today on this important matter. And right away, I want to turn to everyone, and let's start from Klavdija. What roles do universities actually play in promoting rural innovation? Do they, and how universities see their role in this topic?
Hello. At first, let me thank you for giving me the opportunity to be actively involved in this important event. Yes, universities are very important for innovation in rural areas. And I believe that it's one of the core missions of the university to help develop the society, the urban area as well as the rural area. And in our region, we are trying to collaborate really closely with the rural area. And just this year, we are really actively involved in preparation of the strategy for the region up to 2050. And we are very happy that the European Commission is supporting the innovation in rural areas. And I hope that with the synergy of national funding, regional funding and EU funding, we will achieve our goals. This is for the start. It's okay.
Thank you so much. I'm moving further then on the importance of education and of course importance of the role of universities in creation innovation ecosystems. Please, dear Julija, how do you see as a university your role?
Hello, everyone. Congratulations on this event and thank you for inviting me. Actually, I heard a little bit about discussion before, and much already was said regarding universities, how universities can support rural innovations. We can talk about a lot of things. It's about education, about policy in general, about infrastructures, including incubators, and that was everything already mentioned about resources, I mean, human resources, about financial incentives for that, networks. But I think I would probably focus on one of unifying factors. It's, I would say, a unifying factor is kind of culture or mindset of this ecosystem. And I would begin from a kind of contradictory statement that I would like to discuss with you in this panel. That from the one side, universities indeed have huge and broad possibilities and ecosystems which are more or less developed, of course. They could be better, but for startups and innovations, much is already invested in, at least in Europe, in this regard. However, this ecosystem, his whole ecosystem for innovations and startups, is not specifically oriented to regions. It is not specifically oriented to villages' needs or rural needs, how to say. And it would be, of course, very desirable. And from the other side, it's indeed the problem that it is not oriented. And why I say so? Maybe it is not a problem in some countries. We will hear from other participants. But when I speak about Lithuania, let's say, I'm just tonight returned from Germany, where I was in a meeting of European Alliance for Transform for Europe. Klavdija is the director of one of universities which is in this alliance. And we prepared documentation for meeting of rectors, which will be in November. But in this meeting, I kind of saw that Saarland University, which is in relatively small town of Germany, Saarbrücken. I don't know if you heard before about this, but it was first time when I was in this town. It is indeed not big town, but Saarland University is huge, with beautiful educational and research infrastructure. And I thought in myself, whether in Lithuania, it would be possible to have such infrastructure somewhere, you know, in Tauragė, in Biržai, or Anykščiai, you know, in some relatively small town, because I would say in Lithuania and maybe in Latvia, I don't know, there is kind of this hierarchical mindset, you know, the best things happen in Vilnius, you know, sometimes in Kaunas, but not somewhere in rural or areas usually, or regions, let's say. So, and I would like to base this idea or relative ideas with some famous Polish intellectual, Krzysztof Szyszewski. I don't know if you know about him, but he's an author of a great book, Little Center of the World, Mali Center Sveta, which I think is very relative in context of mindset or mentality, how we think about this relation between centers and regions, between centralized, decentralized, between hierarchical, clustering. You know, it's kind of versus and contradictory concepts. And he, this Polish intellectual, Szyszewski, he believed that centers of the world should be created in small towns. And he made it on his own example. He made such center in Krasnogruda in Poland, which is one of the most desolate towns in Poland. And he, very intellectual person, very educated, created center of intercultural dialogue, which indeed attracted artists from New York, from London, from Paris. And this initiative received a lot of attraction to this little town. So yeah, he also, if I would refer to his ideas very shortly, he said that the small center of the world seeks no monopoly, because monopoly likes to dominate and likes to rule on others. And these small centers, they really happy with success of every participant, with every partner, and they want partnership and collaboration. And these monopolies, contrary, they have a completely different attitude. So I would actually stop here because I understand that everybody should speak. So we would probably develop later. I just say that we should kind of try to change this mindset on political level as well, and on university level, on institutional level. So that is my statement. So
thank you, Julia, so much. You've made many good points, as one of them was that rural areas are not that attractive to live in, to do business, to create startups, and etc. And maybe how can education and universities complement for further development of the attractiveness of the rural areas, but we'll come back to that a little bit later. And I want to move on to dear Liene. Please give your insights on how do you see universities' role in the creating innovation ecosystems in rural areas?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I would say for small country, it's the big question, because where's the line between rural area and the city? As you know, the kilometers from one countryside to another is not too much. So this is also a big question if we should have this limits, where's the rural area starting and where's the capital city or the big cities, and how it has been built. And also what is important to, again, throw back to history, that university is the knowledge center. And this has been hundreds of years. And around it, there's industry, and there's all the infrastructure, the research, etc., and the startups as a new way of doing business. So question is, we are pushing this approach that we are moving universities in rural area, and that will change something regarding the innovation capacity. I don't think so. I don't think that we need to a little bit do this fiction of that we will bring the knowledge there, and then there be a big city after the 50 years. And this is what we are looking for. Our university, what we have done is to open the knowledge centers in different smaller cities. And the big question is for the centers, what they should focusing on. If they should do the replicate already study courses, or do some study as usual, or the research as usual. And I believe the answer is no, that there should be focusing already on this rural area specific needs, and where the industry is. And also, when we're looking for this new possibilities that we have in the business field, like energy independence, or the climate change is also a big thing, and etc. So I believe that we can look at the rural areas as a test beds for the different kind of technologies. And then there is some parts of university, sure. I don't believe that it's university as a whole, maybe some, research center or something. Then there is industry who has interested in this, and rural area as a as a specific place where we can really test something. Also, just to mention one example, like in Sweden, I don't remember the city name, unfortunately, but there's a test city with the new technologies, so that people really live there, but companies can come and test the ideas with the new technologies. Also, this is what we are now doing here in Riga Technical University, or university is located on island, Kypsala. It's not look like an island, but it is. And we opened a test bed for researchers and also for the startups, that they can test their technologies here. And I see the rural areas could go in the same direction, but most specific already with the challenge or the question that they are planning to solve. And for the small countries, I believe it works really well.
Thank you so much, Liene. Very good insights. And I liked a lot about you mentioning, knowledge centers in the regional areas and smaller towns, and the possibilities for the businesses to test. I think this is very great idea. And maybe when we talk about startup villages, maybe those testing facilities could be a starting point for the startup village to be created around them, because that's what they're talking about, the infrastructure. And let me move to George Beers. You are representing kind of university, Wageningen University. We know it very well, but also you are coordinator of the biggest network of the SmartAgriHubs in agri-food sector, working with innovation, with startups, with innovation implementation, testing. So how do you see this collaboration? How universities play part in this ecosystem and unite the entrepreneurship and then innovation and actual knowledge? You're muted. Yes.
Thanks, Kristina, and it's really a pleasure to participate in this opening event. Yeah, I have the privilege to work for Wageningen University, and it's a university that is dedicated to sustainable food production, and that's all we do. So that's I think it's important to be aware of this mission. So we do much more than, let's say, our academic obligation. I think for understanding what we are doing, it helps. As I see it, we have two types of innovation. If you talk about, especially when you talk about innovation in the rural area. We have one type of innovation that I would call modernizing a sector. So be broad, pan-European, etc. And the other type of innovation is innovation that is based on specific competences of a region. I think Silicon Valley is the example of that. If I look at innovation to modernize the sector, we as Wageningen, we initiated, and we are coordinating the SmartAgriHubs initiatives, where we set up a network of a large-scale number of digital innovation hubs. So the focus is on digital innovation. So it's not all innovation, but digital innovation. And so we looked at agricultural areas where agriculture is an important activity, and we try to establish there a so-called digital innovation hub, a place where farmers can go for their questions and their challenges on digitization, but also at local level, so within the farming community, to promote digitization and to set up an ecosystem where with tech providers, with extension services, with banks, funding agencies, etc., education. So ecosystem to promote and stimulate and to boost digitization in the sector at local level. And currently we have established more than 350 of those digital innovation hubs, this agricultural digital innovation hub, all over Europe. In every member state we have at least one digital innovation hub. But all in all, we have 350, and more than half of them is very active, like our Lithuanian partners, very active digital innovation hubs. Important aspect is that this great large number of hubs are connected. So our paradigm is connecting the dots. So they are connected with each other, but they're also connected to the state of the art in Europe. So we collect all the knowledge that we can find in all corners of Europe, bring it together and make it available for those digital innovation hubs to stimulate digitalization in their region. So that's, I think, a good example that we feel we do from our responsibility to build a sustainable food system. That's the other part of, let's say, that I mentioned, the other type of innovation. That's more, let's say, the type of innovation that is based on clusters, as Michael Porter already in the 1980s and 1990s published. So he mentioned the examples of Silicon Valley and of the Fashion Valley in Italy. But as a third valley, he mentioned the Food Valley in the Netherlands. And the Food Valley is built around Wageningen. And Wageningen used to be a very rural, remote area in the Netherlands. So the lessons I learned from that is, if you want to have innovation in the rural area, put a university there. That's the simple answer. Because, you know, when it's really rural, remote, students have to go there. They cannot commute from their home, so they have to live there, and they meet their spouse, and they start a family over there, and they stay there. And that's how this Food Valley concept is working, in my opinion. So that's one of the things that we foster and that we are very much involved in. And we have established startups, facilities, all kinds of incubation facilities. It's all in this Food Valley. Further on, if we look at the broader context in the Netherlands, we have the concept of green ports. And these are basically regional public-private partnerships for innovation. And we have a couple of them that are focusing on agriculture. So in the greenhouse district, we have, well, of course, a green port really focusing on that. And we have 4 or 5 others in which agriculture and agri-food is an important aspect. And in those green ports, we participate as one of the stakeholders. So we take care of education. We have research in that area. So that's and a last thing that I want to mention in this is another valley that is not very well known throughout the world, but in the sector we know it's the Seed Valley. In the vegetable seed, plant breeding, there are 5 multinationals, and they all have their head office in a very small area in the Netherlands. So that's called the Seed Valley in the Netherlands, and that's not. We are not, as a university, not directly involved, but we have a lot of students and graduates that are finding their employment over there, and they are, let's say, collectively building this Seed Valley. So that's the contribution that we deliver as Wageningen in this challenge of rural innovation. Thank you, Kristina.
Thank you so much, George. Very many good points being made. So I'm already connecting the dots, like Liene mentioned, putting the test beds in the regions. And then, as George said, let's put universities. So we bring young people back to the regions. And I've seen many good examples of such cities in Europe, but probably, unfortunately, we cannot do that in every small city. So let me move on to Evelyn. Well, I left you for the ending on purpose. Why? Because you are the coordinator of the consortium of 44 universities, which pledged actually to support Startup Village initiative. So please explain how you're gonna be doing this and what kind of pledge is that, and maybe how do you see the concept of the startup villages being developed all over Europe.
Yes, thank you so much, Kristina, for having me and inviting me. And I'm very happy to represent 6 university alliances from all across Europe, which is quite a powerful force. And I hope I can do my best to represent them. We actually formed this summer our alliance and our hub, and are now trying to identify how we can become most effective. So we formulated a vision statement, which is basically based on the new European Research and Innovation Agenda. And it represents core actions, what we found where all 44 universities across all alliances are able to commit according to their individual strengths. So this is quite impressive, and it shows that everyone can contribute if they want, and they can enable. So I can give you some examples from the vision statement, and most of them are already actually have been mentioned also in the discussion before in the opening session, which is basically opening up facilities, so for testing, for prototyping. And I think really we have so many testing facilities, we have laboratories, whatever is needed. And I said in an earlier discussion earlier this month, I also said, let the startups come back. If they have another question, if they need a reassurance or whatever, then let them come back and make another test or whatever. This is not like we are crowded with thousands of new tests, but we have the capacities to do that. And then also ensure that we have mobility for the students, which is done beautifully throughout all these university alliances, because there are European university alliances, and this is one of their core tasks to do. Also promote inclusion and diversity, female entrepreneurship. I think this is something what we can really do and what we can focus on, and what we need where we need to pay attention when we design our curriculums. And what we also did, this was earlier already mentioned, we did a mapping exercise to really understand how the entrepreneurship institutions or facilities look like across all the universities. And this also reflected the reason why I think the Commission implemented the Startup Village initiative. And also it is really that we have huge differences between universities, regions, in terms of how their technical equipment is, how they are in terms of financial equipment, and why and how they can face these development traps the rural areas are in, and how they can support. But let me come back to a very simple thing what we can do. It is actually how we set, for example, our examples when we are teaching. So are we using just examples of like large companies, urban areas, or are we really focusing on examples of a startup that solved the problem in a rural area, or are we really trying to dissect the problems back to the grassroots? So what is really the issue? And I think that's something what we can also do. I mean, it doesn't really matter when we have like a methodological issue, then explain it at that kind of example. So it's there. What we also do, for example, with our university is we allow students to go into startups and help them develop products and be part of it with a project, for example. So they understand it, understand what the issue is, they understand how this business works, they understand how startups are being developed. Let them be part of the experience. So this is everything that is possible is there. I think it's just refocusing on this, on the regional issues. And I think the main thing is that we have, as universities, it's not our core task of rural development, but we should still focus more on it and make students aware of these issues. And once they connect with the rural areas, I think they are all for it and try to solve these problems because they see that these are necessary. And just one more example, with our alliance here at Hohenheim, we focus much on the bioeconomy. And for the bioeconomy, for example, rural areas are the backbone, because where else should we find the bio-based resources? So, I mean, this is perfect example to really include this topic. And this is also maybe what SmartAgriHubs do. And through technology, for example, we can easily connect with actors in the rural areas. They can tell the story, you know, live and from their perspective. And I think that's most important. So we have a lot of things ahead of us, but I think uniting these 44 universities and working very closely together with the European Commission, we are also trying to shape the definition of the startup villages, and also that we already mentioned, or we already talked to them, that we need also part of the definition need to be networks, and that was also part of the presentation today. So thank you for having me here, and I hope we have a nice discussion.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Evelyn, for your insights, and I totally agree. We still have lots of work to do, for example, to developing the concept overall. We've heard the different interpretations today, but it still is ongoing. That's why we are discussing, that's why they are gathering together, and that's why we're discussing different stakeholders, what kind of roles they could be playing in this initiative, and how to help by the end of the day to implement innovations in the rural areas. And I'd like to come back, as Julija said, probably especially in small countries, it's very vital, you know, not to have one city country. So that's what we are also talking about. So how can we spread this innovation? And you know, actually, it used to be a long time ago that if you're living in the rural area, it was a prestige to go to the university, you know, to go away from the countryside. And I think it's applicable to all over the Europe. It's not only for Lithuanian thing. And now we are starting, you know, listen to talk, how can we attract young people back? So I think actually universities have a huge role to play here, because you're the one, you know, teaching what is the innovation, how it could be implemented. So I'd like to come back to this important question. You already, if you listened to the discussions before, and it was mentioned in the Commissioner's Gabriel speech in the beginning, about the Startup Village Alliance. She sees it as a foundation, as a main supporter to move forward. So I would like just to hear everyone's opinion. So how do you see from educational part, from the universities, who really should be the front runners? We've heard some opinions already from European Commission, from other organizations, but how do you see it from your universities? As we've heard the example, maybe university could be this, you know, front runner and help everyone then to collaborate together. So please, Klavdija, what is your opinion on that?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that universities shouldn't be working behind closed doors, but we should be very good informed about what our society is working. For example, we are located on the Mediterranean coast, and olive oil is one of the main production here, and wine production as well. It's very important. And so it took us for quite some years to encourage our researchers and our students to be more connected to the rural area, to the society around the university. And I can say that nowadays we are already quite good attached, and with the help of projects that were actually using the civil science approach, so that we actually worked together with different forums, and now, just an example, we are having an EU project about olive leaves. So olive leaves are a side product that is not used in the ecosystem. And within this EU project, we are trying to develop this important biomass to a high added value international market applications. And so the university should do the innovation, should do the primary research, but our goal is that actually the farmers, the villages will start with innovative production, not just producing olive oil, but also to produce some new biomass that is very rich in its structure. But this is just one of the examples. So I think that the universities should have the role to make new patents, new innovations, and then to actually give the innovations to the rural society around us, and that we are not the ones that are doing the innovations for our better income. So we are like, our university is a public university, and we should do whatever we do for the benefit of the society and not for the benefit of our higher salaries or better income for the university. And I would also like to point out that the concept of micro-credentials, reskilling and upskilling that are very important within the European Union. These concepts are also mentioned in the strategy for European universities and also in the new European innovation agenda. And with this kind of activities, I think that the universities can somehow attract the rural society to come to the university and to see that we can actually be an added value for their development. And for sure, it's important that students are involved in these innovations. So I am really happy that Slovenian government in the last few years was encouraging the trip-side collaboration. So students, professors and companies, farmers, so some other organization for small collaborational projects, and many of these collaborational projects actually ended up with some innovations. And in Slovenia, we are also a small country and we have one big city, and but our university is on the coast. So now our region has 6% of the Slovenian population. So we are more as a rural environment here. But it's very important that the strategic documents of the state of the country include regional development, so that the universities, research institutes are not located only in the capital, but that they are spread around the country. And I'm happy that in Slovenia, in this year, in March this year, we adopted a new national program of higher education, as well as a new research and innovation strategy. Both documents are really in line with EU initiatives, and the regional development is very importantly involved in both documents. And the first actions were already taken. So in this year, 2 public research institutes were established outside Ljubljana, our capital, and they were established in small towns where there is a lot of potential for the development. And
thank you so much. Yeah, Klavdija, thank you so much for such broad explanation and great jobs that you're doing in implementation, and actually listening to you talk. Had this idea, another thing, how to encourage from the university part where startups in many cases, lots of research which is being done, it does not reach the entrepreneurship, and this is another very important point. So dear Liene, you mentioned about those test beds and accessibility for the startups. How do you see it, how it could be even more improved? Should those facilities, for example, those laboratories for the test beds should be maybe free for all whoever wants to test their innovations? How do you see it?
Just to very quickly reflect, from our perspective, I see the university can be this hot point where all the stakeholders meet. And that's because the university is that organization who thinks about society. Because industry think about business and it's totally fine, and government thinks about all politics and it's also totally fine. And I believe university is that perfect match of all the interests that can bring all the stakeholders around the table and have a fruitful discussions. And we do that all day long in different topics, and we see that that this is something that everyone is waiting for. Who will be that organization or whatever consortium who will push this as a system approach, not just the one stakeholder need? So an answer to the test bed is just one tool that we can show. It's a playground for different stakeholders, and there's still not, we haven't found the best recipe as any case is unique, and it's totally fine, because this is something that we talk about the mindset. So this, I want to also highlight, it's extremely important that we understand with the mindset what we really mean. And in our case, we understand that it's okay to have a mistake. And this is extremely important for innovation. And also for all the EU framework, let's be honest, if the framework is totally fine with mistakes, with experimentation, with non-known result, and I don't see that yet, this experimentation culture, but this is something that we want to bring here. And it's hard to put it together, this frameworks and the experimentation journey, let's say. But we see that there is a future, that we bring this experimentation on the table, and in all the fields, then the innovations can happen.
Thank you so much, Liene. I'm going to Julija right away. So what is your opinion? So who is that front runner?
Thank you for the question. From all this discussion, what I heard from other participants, I would say that real front runner of all these processes is people and communities which are mostly interested in these innovations. Because when we speak about innovations, we probably very often use technologies as a buzzwords, digitalization, infrastructures, and so on. But we kind of do not put enough focus on people and communities. And I speak about just giving importance to small people, to giving importance to their small communities and their efforts to do something different. And if they feel important, they can do miracles indeed. And we can find many examples. And I like Wageningen example. And I would like to even visit your university to look how it works. So indeed, and you also mentioned, George, in your presentation about the types of innovation. which you have at your university. And I would say this innovation about competences, centers of competences, it's also about social innovations. And I would even see it broader, kind of. When we talk about innovations, it's not only technological innovations, it's also social innovations, which usually also talks about cultural mindset and other possibilities, and they can work together very effectively. So that's my opinion.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Julia. Thank you for good insights. And now I'd like to turn to George. So you have a big experience, working with networks and also connecting different networks, working with digital innovation hubs, and then connecting with universities, etc. So how do you see if forming such a Startup Village Alliance, who should be stakeholders? And what kind of role universities are playing in this?
Okay, thanks for this challenging question. As I see it, I'm not too positive about a very prominent role of the universities. Let me explain. Of course, when your university is the center of a cluster like the Food Valley, it's obvious. But in SmartAgriHubs, we see a different role for universities. The lead in the regions should be at different stakeholders. We have done in SmartAgriHubs experiments. Some of the DIHs are run by cooperatives. Others are initiated by extension services. We have examples where the government is taking the initiative for a DIH. We have individual companies who do it. So we have schools who take so not universities, but let's say the advanced schools, applied universities as they call themselves. So we have experimented a lot in Europe with different initiators. The role of the universities is, of course, to provide the knowledge, and that's where we connect the dots. So what we are doing, I explained that we are collecting the knowledge, so the methods and the technology, and also, as Julia completely correct pointed out, we have a lot of instruments for digitization from the social sciences. So if you are really implementing, you also need to look at the business and all the context, legal, ethical, all the stuff, and the role of the university, as we did in SmartAgriHubs, is collecting all those, let's say, tools, methods that are available to help the digital innovation hubs to do what they are supposed to do to support digitization. So that's the role to more in an, let's say, in an orchestrating way, collecting the information. And if nobody wants to take the initiative for, let's say, the European approach, then universities are in place, especially universities who have a specific ambition. like you have in Wageningen, then you feel responsible to take the initiative. I think that's how it works. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George. And Evelyn, so now you've listened to everyone with all of the different opinions, and what I'm really liking is, even though everyone is representative of universities, we have quite different opinions and quite different approaches. So this is fantastic. So we can collaborate together and make something good. So please share your thoughts on that.
Yes, so I really, the bits and pieces fit perfectly together, what everyone contributed already. I have three suggestions. The first is that I really like the suggestion of the European Commission of defining deep tech innovations, which is not just an implementation of a technology or a certain solution, but it's always with the focus on the sustainable development goals. So, and it also comprises the social aspect, the people and the regions, and recognizes the differences. And I think that is something that we need to promote across all the universities and all the stakeholders, and really try to gain an understanding what it really means. And that's why we, for example, in the hub of the alliances, we did with this mapping exercises. And what we will do is we will connect all the entrepreneurship institutions across all universities in Europe, which is very interesting because then we can really understand how innovations look like in each country or specific site or according to the topic, you know, you name it. A second or third thing is that we talk to our innovators and the startups. And what they are really aiming for is that the most innovative ones, they want to get to know the other innovative ones all across Europe. And that's why we are right now trying to set up a database with all the startups that are ready to support us in our Startup Village initiative or in our hub, basically. And I think once we have that database and the readiness of these startups, I think that is a powerful force where we can collaborate and work together. And I just think there is a fourth thing, which is when we set up as universities proposals and research projects, then maybe it's very wise to not just consider maybe as the example of the resources we, for example, use for our experiments. They are often perfect to be used in the laboratory. But how about we think where these resources actually come from and how do they look there and how can they be obtained? How do we need to cooperate with those who produce these resources in the rural areas? And then you automatically think about where the issues are and where we need to collaborate and how this can work, how we can implement our innovations. So particularly in the bioeconomy, I recognize that we have wonderful solutions, but when it comes to the implementation, we need to close that gap between what is possible in the laboratory and how does it look like in reality. So these are 4 suggestions, and there you automatically get who the players are. I mean, these are, as already said, these are the people in the areas, the experts, the startups, and we need to take responsibilities as well as the universities. And then it really, I think it's rather about the topic and the individual situation as opposed to finding that perfect management board or whoever should lead that initiative. I think once you have a topic you want to thrive and a problem you want to solve, then let's go with that and use the flow, I think. But that's just my opinion on that.
Thank you, Evelyn, so much. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time totally. I see this discussion continue for a longer time. That's why you represent universities and knowledge. You have lots of experience and different knowledge, and your inputs are very valuable. Thank you for that. And what I encourage to do further, that's to continue the discussion, how the innovations should be implemented, how we can work together in collaboration and do that. And let's all meet on the 28th of February on the Startup Village Forum. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us so late in the Friday evening. Have a great weekend, and I'm moving further. And right now, probably it will be very interesting for our hackathon participants, because you will